I was halfway through a budget report when my phone lit up with Mom and a cheerful ringtone that always makes me tense. I answered anyway and heard her brisk voice say, "Denise, you'll need to collect Ruby. She got sick in the car. We left her by a safe spot on the road. It's close, 15 minutes from you, I think." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, pushing my chair back so hard it hit the wall. She sounded calm, like she was reading a shopping list. She was ill. We couldn't risk the other kids catching it, and we've got a flight. You can be there quickly. My dad's voice rumbled in the background, firm and distant. "Don't overreact. We dropped her where there are people around." A pin location popped into our group chat. Then silence. I stood very still, listening to the hum of my office AC, my heartbeat louder than the fan. I grabbed my keys, shut my laptop with one hand, and ran. The elevator seemed to crawl. The parking lot felt too bright and too empty at the same time. As I pulled onto the main road, their words looped in my head. "She's fine. Don't overreact." My knuckles went white on the steering wheel. I knew the highway stretch they meant. Long, flat, a shoulder that collects dust and gravel, a few broken fences, and miles of nothing. The closer I got, the more wrong the pin looked. There were no shops, no bus stop, no busy turnout. Just heat over asphalt and wind in the grass. I turned off and rolled along the shoulder, scanning the empty verge, telling myself she would be standing with a family, or near a farmhouse, or under a sign. Then I saw a small figure by a bent road marker. She held her backpack like a shield. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. When I braked and jumped out, she looked up and her face collapsed. "Mom!" She ran, stumbling on the gravel, and fell into my arms. Her whole body shook. I could smell stale vomit and the warm plastic of her backpack straps. "I'm here," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my chest felt tight. "You're safe now." She hiccuped. "They said I couldn't come. They said I was too sick, but I'm not. I just got dizzy." I knelt and checked her forehead. Cool. No fever. Eyes tired and red from crying. I handed her my water bottle, watched her sip, slow and careful. "You got carsick?" She nodded, lip quivering. That was all. Not a flu. Not a stomach bug. Just a child in a crowded car on a hot day. I buckled her into the front seat beside me because I needed to see her and started the car. We drove away from the pin, dust swirling behind us. I turned off the AC and opened the windows for fresh air. She leaned her head on the seat and stared at her hands. "They said I ruined it," she whispered. A bitter laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. "Sweetheart, the only thing ruined is their idea of what being a grandparent means." She didn't smile. Not yet. I kept talking in a low, even voice, the way you talk when you are guiding someone out of a dark room. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing." The highway signs blurred past. I took the long way home on purpose. No sudden turns, no fast stops. I asked simple questions. Did her stomach still hurt? Did she feel hot? Did she want crackers? She shook her head. "Just tired." At home, I carried in a blanket and tucked her on the couch, propped her up with pillows, set water within reach, and sat beside her until the shaking slowed. She kept hold of my sleeve as if I might vanish like they did. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. Small voice, eyes not meeting mine. "No," I said, steady and sure. "I'm mad at them, and they're about to regret it." She nodded and finally closed her eyes. I stared at the ceiling and felt something in me lock into place. Quiet and hard, I would not shout, I would act, and I would start today. I made tea and watched the steam rise while Ruby slept on the couch, and I let my mind walk back through the path that led to that roadside. It didn't start today. It started years ago when I learned that in my family, practical means cruel, but neat. When I was 11, I had a regional math competition on a Saturday I'd circled on the calendar. That same morning, my parents rolled suitcases to the car for a surprise Florida trip with my brother. Disney, beaches, photos, and left me with a neighbor because you must have written the date wrong. When they came back, they kept saying, "What a shame you weren't there," like the plane tickets bought themselves. I learned to be useful instead of wanted. In high school, I took every extra shift. In college, I filed taxes for half the dorm. After graduation, I landed in fintech and built steady habits. Pay on time, save, fix things. That made me the responsible one, which in our house meant the wallet. We had a family system where everyone contributed what they could. In real life, it meant I chipped in $600 a month to the emergency fund. My brother sent $150 when he felt like it, and somehow the fund always covered their shortfalls. An insurance gap here, a car repair there, a missed mortgage payment. Announced in a cheerful text, "We had to use the fund. Hope that's okay." I co-signed their mortgage to get a better rate and later co-signed their car lease just until the refinance, and I held my breath every month watching their due dates tick by. I told myself it was worth it because I wanted Ruby to have a different story. Cousins, grandparents, holidays with laughter that didn't have a price tag. So I kept paying for the togetherness. $1,500 to $2,000 on trips labeled "Everyone pays what they can," which always ended with me paying what they couldn't. When they announced Orlando for the grandkids, I hesitated. The dates landed right on my busiest week. My husband couldn't go, and my stomach tightened at the old pattern. But Ruby's face lit up when she heard parade and roller coasters, and I folded. I paid $850 for her airfare, hotel, and park pass, then another $1,200 toward group costs, because you make more, Denise. I packed her snacks, handed over motion sickness tablets, wrote my number on the inside of her backpack, and told myself they would care for her. I told myself money buys safety. Today proved money only buys a seat in the car, not kindness when it matters. The kettle clicked off. I poured the tea and made a list with a pen that didn't shake. First item, protect Ruby. That meant I stopped pretending their logic is love. Second, unhook the lines they tied to my name. Third, keep records. I opened a folder on my laptop called Boundary, and I started dropping in scans, transfer confirmations, co-sign paperwork, screenshots of our family chat. I wrote a short note to myself, believe what they do, not what they say. In the quiet, I heard Ruby's breath even out. I checked her forehead again, cool, and tucked the blanket under her shoulder. My phone buzzed with a new church group message, a flyer about a family barbecue hosted by my parents next month. I stared at the words, "All grand kids welcome," like they were a joke printed too neatly. I thought of the bent road marker, the hot shoulder, my child clutching her backpack like a shield, and something settled in me like a key turning in a lock. I would not argue, and I would not beg. I would move step by step in order, and I would leave a trail of dates and receipts that no one could spin. I sat at the table, opened my banking app, and hovered over the recurring transfers. I took a breath, slow and steady, and prepared to make the first cut. I pressed cancel on the $600 monthly emergency fund transfer and watched the confirmation slide across my screen. Then I ended the autopay for group trips that always turned into me covering the difference. Next, I called the mortgage company, gave my full name, and said clearly, "I'm a cosigner and I want removal reviewed." And the woman on the line spoke in careful phrases, "Reverification, income proofs, possible rate change." Each one a small door closing on the old arrangement. I called the car lease company and asked for the same review, wrote down case numbers, dates, and the names of the two representatives who sounded surprised that I knew exactly what to ask. I saved the call recordings where the menu allowed, and when it didn't, I typed summaries as soon as I hung up. Then I opened a blank message to my parents and attached two images. The $850 I paid for Ruby's airfare, hotel share, and park ticket, and the $1,200 group cost transfer they requested because you make more, Denise. And I wrote one sentence. "You left Ruby on the roadside, return the $2,150 I paid for this trip." And hit send. The reply came fast. First, a call from Mom with her voice sharp and breathless. "How dare you send that? She's your daughter. Do you expect us to pay for your child?" And I said, voice flat, "I expect you to repay what you took after you abandoned her." And Dad grabbed the phone, his tone like gravel. "She was sick. We had a flight. We couldn't risk the other kids." And I answered, "She was carsick, not contagious, and you left an 8-year-old alone on a road." And there was a pause that sounded like someone covering the receiver to whisper. Then Mom came back softer. "You're overreacting, Denise. We left her in a safe place." And I pictured the bent road marker and the sun-baked shoulder and said, "No people, no shops, no house, 20 minutes alone, that is not safe." And Dad tried the old hook. "We sacrificed for you, you owe us." And I let the silence stretch until I could hear my own calm. "I have paid for years. The fund, the trips, the cosigns, that debt is closed." And he snapped, "You can't just walk away." And I said, "Watch me." Then I ended the call and saved the log. I took screenshots of everything: the sent message, their missed calls, the bank confirmations, and dropped them into the boundary folder, adding short notes with times. I checked on Ruby, touched her cool forehead, and she opened her eyes just enough to ask, "Are you still here?" And I said, "Yes, I'm here." Then I went back to the table and wrote a second message to my parents with 3 bullet plain lines. 1, emergency fund transfer canceled effective today. 2, cosign removal reviews opened for mortgage and car lease. Expect lender contact. 3, repayment of $2,050 due within 7 days. I expected more calls, but got a different ping. A family chat notification lighting up the corner of my phone, my mother's name on a post I did not open yet. Instead, I forwarded my repayment message to my own email, then printed the receipts to a PDF so they couldn't be lost in a thread. After that, I called our pediatrician's office to ask about motion sickness steps for next time: fresh air, water, small snacks. And I wrote them on a sticky note for Ruby's backpack. I made her toast and left it by the couch with a small smiley face drawn in honey. And when the chat pinged again and again, I finally opened it. A cropped screenshot of my request, a plea for prayers, and no mention of the road. I typed a single reply: "They left Ruby alone. I picked her up 20 minutes later." And before sending, I attached their pin drop and my phone's call log to stamp the time. Then I pressed send and set the phone face down. The room went quiet except for the fridge hum and Ruby's slow breathing. In that quiet, I felt the shape of the next steps arrive like a map in my head. Do not argue, do not explain twice, keep receipts, move forward. And as if on cue, the phone vibrated hard with Dad's number again, but I let it roll to voicemail, opened my notebook, and wrote across the top in clear letters, "Action taken, day 1. The family chat lit up like a siren after my one-line reply, bubbles stacking so fast the screen lagged. A cousin asked, 2,000? For real? An aunt wrote, "Denise, you always make drama." And a church friend added a gentle, "We'll pray for unity." And I kept my thumb still until Dad himself dropped a long message that he clearly thought would settle everything. Any rational person would have done what we did. We had a flight to catch. She was sick. We could not risk the other children. We chose the safest option available. I read those lines twice, then 3 times, letting the words sit in my chest until they turned from heat to evidence. I took a screenshot of his message, then attached the pin they had sent me and my call log times, and I wrote one calm sentence under it. "You left an 8-year-old alone for 20 minutes on an empty road because you had a flight." I hit send and put the phone down. 10 seconds later, it vibrated off the edge of the table. Messages poured in, the chat flipping sides in real time. "Wait, you admit you left her?" from one cousin. "Car sickness is not contagious," from another. "This is not safe," from a neighbor who had somehow been added. I watched without typing, just saving screenshots in a new subfolder called Public Statements, time-stamped in a simple list. I made Ruby tea with honey and sat on the edge of the couch while she sipped. When she asked, "Is it over?" I said, "Not yet, but you and I are okay." And I meant it. By evening, the story slipped out of the family chat and into the neighborhood group and the church thread. Someone reposted Dad's words with a shocked face emoji. Someone else wrote, "I can't believe they think this is normal." And by the time Dad deleted his confession from our chat, it had already been copied 3 times that I could see, and probably more that I could not. Sunday morning, I did not go to church, but my phone buzzed with quiet notes from friends who did. Your mom tried to speak, the elders asked her to sit. People would not meet their eyes. They left early. I saved those too, not to hurt them, but to remind myself what truth does when it walks without me. In the afternoon, Act 2 arrived, a screenshot of a bank transfer for $2,050 labeled "Repaid to Denise," captioned by Mom with, "Even though we had already paid for Ruby's place, Denise demanded repayment. Here is proof we paid." For a moment, the tide shifted again. "Well, at least they made it right," an uncle wrote. "See, they're trying," a cousin added. I did not argue. I built a quiet page. I pulled 5 years of payments from my files and tiled them into one clean image. $600 emergency fund debits month after month, trip top-ups of $1,500 and $1,800 and $2,000, the co-sign confirmations for the mortgage and the car lease, and a list of extras that had never been small. I posted that single image with a single line. This is not about one trip. It is about a pattern. Then I closed the app, set the phone face down, and took Ruby outside to the balcony, where the air felt easier. We watered the little basil plant she named Pepper and watched a bird hop along the railing. When we came back in, I saw the chat had gone quiet in a new way. Fewer defenses, more empty space. I saved the last few messages and then opened my boundary folder, checked that every screenshot, transfer, and call note was filed, and wrote the day and time at the top of a page in my notebook. Public fallout begins. I felt no glee, only a steady shift, like a door closing with a clear click. I turned off notifications, put the kettle on, and sat beside my daughter, who leaned into me without asking, both of us breathing in time while the water came slowly to a boil. 6 months passed, and the consequences arrived exactly in the order I expected. First, the money squeeze, then the noise, then the silence. A cousin texted that my parents' mortgage rolled off its fixed rate and jumped so high their faces looked like they were doing math in public, and without my $600 buffer, the late fees stacked like dominoes. The next week, a tow truck idled in front of their house in the clean daylight of a Tuesday, hydraulic arms sliding under the car I had once co-signed, neighbors peeking between blinds as the beeping echoed down the street. By dinner, the neighborhood page had a blurry photo of the car tilted on the lift, and 3 comments that said, "I thought they had everything together," and one that said, "Pray for them," and no one said, "Pillar of the community" anymore. After that came the sign, white post, red letters, "For sale," hammered into their perfect lawn a little crooked, which felt right. They priced high and then cut fast. And when the movers came, there were no casseroles, no lines of friends, just cardboard and tape and a wide, bare porch where greetings used to live. I did not watch from a car or drive by for proof. I did not need proof. My proof was in the quiet of our apartment, where Ruby's sketchbook pages turned from gray smudges to bright color again. We booked Orlando on our own schedule, just the 3 of us. At the gate, she bounced on her toes, clutching our tickets, and when the parade started, she shouted so loud the dancers waved at her. Later, she fell asleep in the hotel bed between us, with sunscreen in her hair, and the kind of smile that makes you forget the world for a minute. On the flight home, she pressed her forehead to the window and said, "I didn't ruin anything." And I said, "You didn't ruin a thing," and felt the words anchor. Back in regular life, small ripples kept reaching me. A friend sent a screenshot from church. My mother had tried to share a testimony about forgiveness, but the thread slipped into a discussion about safeguarding children. And the moderator closed comments with a line I saved, "We love reconciliation, but we start with responsibility." Another relative wrote that my parents asked my brother for help now that Denise has turned her back. And he replied with a sentence that sounded like him, and also like a stranger. "I can't fix what people choose." He did not pay. He did not defend. He let the water find its level. I did not celebrate that either. I let it be data. At home, I kept my rituals. Receipts filed, autopays closed, a simple budget that pointed toward us and not away. Some nights, when the house was quiet, I thought of my 11-year-old self watching suitcases roll to the door while a calendar square sat circled and ignored, and I let that girl come sit with me for a minute, then I walked her to the door and told her gently that I would handle it now. I never called my parents to rehash the road or the chat or the transfer. I never explained the difference between car sickness and cruelty. I did one more thing, though. I wrote a short letter, 3 paragraphs, plain words, about why I ended the fund, why I asked for repayment, and what a boundary is. I printed it, signed it, mailed it to their new address, and kept a copy in the boundary folder. I did not expect a reply. I did not get one. What I did get was space that felt honest. Ruby asked me once more if I was mad at her, and I told her again, slow and sure, never. I chose you. I choose you. Every time. She nodded like she was finally stacking that truth in a place that would not shake. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? I know my answer, but you can tell me yours below. Then I'll close the tab, lock up the files, and take my girl for ice cream, which is the only vote I need.